What's going on? It's your boy Mixmaster to be here live from the MMB radio studios for the MMB radio podcast where no topic is too big or too small. We talk about them all. And today I want to welcome in a guest who has just been tearing it up on socials. She's been posting all kinds of sexy, hot photos, and I think you're going to enjoy her. I enjoy her. I enjoy looking at her photos. So if I enjoy looking at her photos, that's a voucher that you will as well. I want to welcome her in now, the sexy Blasian model and adult performer, Miss Phoenix Angel. Phoenix, how are you?
I am wonderful, and thank you for that intro. I'm duly thankful. Thank you.
Yeah, well, like I said, we say this all the time on episodes. Part of our research is, looking at a lot of amazing content. And, it's just the research part alone is an amazing thing. We love doing our research. So
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, we love looking at all of your content. And, most people that listen to the podcast know that we have a lot of adult entertainers and performers. And, everybody has like a different title. So I guess you go by adult performer. So in your definition, what defines you as an adult performer?
Well, I guess for me, I do professional and amateur. So I go in between both. So how do I explain this? For me, I'm not shooting for like the fame per se as a lot of people who get into the adult industry do. I'm in it for the sex. So so for me, it's like I'm just going for the sex. So I perform based on what I want to do. There's different things that I get into, and I really I just perform. I go by what's coming at me, what's presented to me, what I want to do, what I feel like doing. And if it's in the amateur realm, if it's in the professional realm, I'm all for it. And sometimes I do things like privately. I actually do a lot of stuff off camera, a lot more off than I do on. And I've told my followers about that before, and they're kind of like, why do you do that? But sometimes I get in situations where the situations I'm in, they don't want to be on camera or they don't want to be on film, which is perfectly fine. So that's an extra, kind of thing for me to do. So that's why I say I'm a performer.
Okay. A great definition of it, because we had a lot of people come on. I'm from the old school realm of, where people were, a porn star, you know what I mean? And it's like, I feel like now it's so vague of like what people are, because anybody can do anything at any time. Like you said, on camera, off camera, professional, amateur. If you got a cell phone like that shit works. So, yeah. I mean, we get a lot of people and they're saying like, I'm an adult entertainer, I'm a performer. And I always love to hear what people's definition is of that, because it's such a big umbrella now of anything that deals with adult content can just be anything and everything you want it to be. So you mentioned that you do things purely for the sex of it. So I'm going to assume that like this isn't something you just found out last week. You've probably been a very like sexual person your entire life, I would assume.
Believe it or not, I have been in my head. Okay, this is very strange.
I thought you were going to say, yeah, you did find out last week that you were just a sexual person.
No.
I'll be like, wow, that's crazy.
I've been sexually conservative outwardly, like physically, most of my life. But in my head, inwardly, I have literally been a freak since I was 12 years old. But my father was extremely strict and like really like iron fist, like I couldn't do anything at all. My first date was prom, if that lets you know and that was only because I was 18 and I graduated a virgin. So that kind of lets you know I wasn't able to do anything. I didn't have like the kind of social experiences most people have. So I am a very late bloomer. I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to get out there and date when I went to college, but I was so afraid of what was in my head, because what was in my head was so strong. I didn't have the social backup experiences to kind of facilitate me expressing that. It was really hard for me. So maybe in my 30s, I started trying to experiment with letting some of that out of my head. And it was a little embarrassing because of course, the way society teaches you, I didn't want people to look at me funny, and you kind of want the whole package. But finally, in my 40s, I just said, you know what, fuck this. I'm tired of this. I just want to, get out there and have some really great sex. So I met my husband, and he's had a lot of sex in his life, like a lot. Like his first time, he was 9 years old. Ha ha
Wow.
ha. Yeah, with his 17-year-old babysitter. We're not going to go into that. But for me, most women would have felt like really like back up about somebody that has had that much sexual experience. But for me, it was a godsend because I'm like, okay, I can be myself with this guy. It's like I don't have to be embarrassed about anything. And I said it on one of my updates on my Twitter or X thing before, that what broke the bond for me was he actually made me squirt. And I have never squirted before. He used his fingers, and I've seen it on porn. I love porn. That's been keeping me going since I was 12. But I thought it was something that a woman was born with, but you're not. It's just the way that you manipulate a woman's body. And that was it for me. I'm like, all right, let's go.
So you mentioned at 12 years old, you knew you were freaky, but you had this strict upbringing. And it's crazy you
Yeah.
say that because I feel like it's either one side or the other. Like, for the
Mhm.
unfortunate stories, you hear people that live in abusive households, and that causes them to get into, the adult business. We see people
Mhm.
that live in a strict household and they want to rebel. So that's why they get
Mhm.
into the business. It's like trying to find that happy medium. So parents is like trying to find that happy medium of not being like don't be abusive, obviously, and don't be like super
Mhm.
strict because like you feel like it pushes you to one end of the spectrums there. But having
Right.
been in a strict household, and you're saying at 12 years old you knew you were like freaky. How did you know at 12 years old that you were freaky?
Well, I was actually my father was military, so it was like that's how we were like raised military. It was like you clean the house all the time. If you messed it up, you cleaned it again. But I was fixing my parents' bed and like cleaning up their bedroom, and I slipped and I was trying to balance myself and my hands went in between the mattresses to like keep myself from falling, and in doing so I felt something in between the mattresses. So I pulled it out, and it turns out, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but do you remember Penthouse Forum magazines?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I was like, I don't know if you're old enough, but for the listeners who may not be old enough, they were like they were like Playboy, but just strictly stories, like really sexy, dirty stories. That's all it was. So I've always been a nerd all my life, and I love to read. So I was like, oh, it's just a book. So I started reading it, and oh my God, the stuff that I was reading, it did. I don't know how other 12-year-olds would react to those kind of like hardcore triple X stories like that. But for me, something went off in my brain, and I remember like my heart started beating fast, my skin started getting warm, I started feeling really aware down there, and I didn't understand it, but for some reason I liked it, and I couldn't understand why I liked it so much. So later on, I kind of like stole one of them and I like hid it in my room. And then later on, like at night, I read it by like after bedtime. I started reading it, and I don't know. I couldn't tell you why I started touching myself or how I knew to do that, but it felt like that was what I was supposed to do. And then I guess that's how I discovered masturbating, I guess. And those stories in my head would not leave my head. And I started masturbating like constantly, constantly. I was in my room laying down reading those books as often as I could. But at the same time, of course, I couldn't tell my parents. And the best friend that I had, I didn't get to go anywhere much, but I could talk to her on the phone. I was scared to tell her these things because at my age, kids, that the little bit of socialization that I had, they didn't talk like that, not that I knew of, so I was super embarrassed. I thought something was wrong with me, and I didn't have anywhere to turn, so I just turned to the inside of my head. And for some reason, it made me happy, and I wanted more. And I just thought something was wrong with me. But as I got older, I went to high school, and it just got stronger and stronger. And it's like the fantasies got stronger and stronger. And I was like, well, I guess this is just who I am. I just have to be miserable and not talk to anyone about it, because everybody, I think back then they were talking about, going on a date or, kissing or whatever, all that stuff. And, people are talking about getting their red wings and anal sex. And I'm like, I had no one to I was so embarrassed, but it almost made me feel sick because I was so turned on by it and I couldn't understand why. But I'm glad I did, because I have a super creative imagination, and I think what's in my head, some of it might be impossible to come to light because it's like impossible, but the other part, I am dead set on trying to make it happen.
So it sounds like you had this constant like internal struggle. Like you clearly like were having feelings. Like you already kind of knew what it was like to have masturbated, um
Mhm.
and now you don't know what the full effective being with somebody is like. At what age did you end up losing your virginity?
I had just graduated high school, and it was the summer after I graduated. And like I said, I was 18, and I wasn't expecting that to happen. He was my first boyfriend, and I was totally like in love with him, totally in love with him. And then we were just hanging out, and then and it just kind of sort of, we were kissing and stuff, and then it just started happening, and I'm like, oh my God, it's going to happen. And it was so freaking painful. I was so pissed off. I was like, this is what I've been reading about. This is what everybody's been talking about. This sucks. This hurts. And I heard there was going to be a little bit of blood because, for a girl losing her virginity, that's what happens. But I didn't realize at the time my first is actually very well endowed. And I'm built very small. I found that out later. I'm built small. And it was so painful. It was so painful. It took a while, like months, before I started to kind of enjoy it.
Now, after you did this, like, did you just kind of turn off and say, I don't even want to masturbate? Like, what was the?
No. Oh, no, no,
So
no, no, no,
you
no.
so
That
you,
never
like,
stopped.
oh, so that was fine. And you think
Yeah.
maybe that's just because like you knew how to control your body, like you've been doing it, so like obviously like you knew the pain, like you knew ways to please yourself in ways that you know what somebody else wouldn't know how to do.
Well, I think in my head that I felt like it's like learning, knowing how to drive before you actually physically can walk. So it's like I was too far ahead in my knowledge of things, but so far behind in my physical experience of it. It was like such a disconnect. For me, it's like in my head, in the readings I've done, I know what's supposed to happen, but physically for me, I was trying to catch up. So like I didn't know how to turn myself on or allow myself to get turned on by another person. All I knew that it was coming from was from my own mind. And you can't sit there and like fantasize and be quiet in front of another person.
Yeah.
You have to engage with them, and you do things and touching each other and kissing and stuff. So I didn't have any of that experience. So the gap was really big. So I didn't know how to be comfortable in those kind of social, like relationship, dating, sexual situations like that. I was still so far behind socially. I was trying to get over that. And then getting over that and then getting to the sexual part as well, that was like a huge hurdle for me. So it was uncomfortable simply because I didn't know how. So it kind of made me feel bad about myself. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? I have all this stuff in my head, and I felt more comfortable by myself because then I had the freedom to not feel bad about myself and just let my imagination go. And I really found my outlet in porn. I love it. I got to see other people do it. So believe it or not, my teachers became porn. So I had to learn what to do, like those little stupid skits that you see, the bad acting. I had to learn how to approach dating, sexual situations like that, and what they do by watching porn. That's all I had. So I mean, I talked to my sister or like new friend college stuff, and sometimes they would look at me like I was ridiculous, but I was just playing catch up. But eventually, I did.
And you met your husband. So explain how you met your husband.
This was really funny. We tell people different stories because it depends on who we talk to. Only because some people are not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not cool enough to understand that everything is not traditional. We actually met online, and for me, a friend of mine told me when I first moved to California, I loved California, and I was like, I don't know anybody here. So a friend of mine told me from work, was like, well, why don't you get online, and this is the best way for you to meet people without having to like go to bars and just sit there or whatever like that, and you can, pick and choose. I'm like, that's a great idea. So it turns out, I found out later, we were on the same site, and he had a date that night with another woman. I had a date that night with a pilot from American Airlines. I was a flight attendant for a long, long time. But we both connected that day, and we had such a fun time talking to each other. Both of us broke our dates, and we went out that night. And our first night, we went to a comedy club. We went to a little bistro and then a comedy club, which I must recommend to people. If you want to go out and have a great date with someone, take them to a comedy club. You cannot go wrong. But after then, it was like we were so comfortable with each other. The first time we finally slept with each other, he made me come so fast, and I had never been able to do that, like ever. And it kind of startled me, because I'm like, wait. I've always had that disconnect at first, like I have to play catch up. With him, I didn't. And it just kind of went from there. And I felt so sexually comfortable with him, and he's my best friend, and it just kind of went from there.
Now, did you know when you met him that he was as sexual and open as you are? I mean, it's kind of like a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Like you were trying to find your way, and you had all these sexual desires, and then like you finally meet somebody who's kind of like your alpha to what you're
Yeah.
experiencing.
Yeah.
So
It,
how did he disclose that to you, that he was just like, I mean, because he's probably thinking the same thing along the lines you are, like, how do I just automatically tell somebody that I'm, this kind of, sexual paralysis of a person, without scaring them away. So when he first kind of like opened up to you and told you kind of like how he was, and how did
hmm
you react to that?
The thing about it, I've met men that over the years that I've tried to have like one night stands with, just to express myself and try to get a hold of my sexuality. I've had men something along that lines, but they didn't have the finesse that he did. The thing about it was, my husband is what is called an alpha male. But with his alpha maleness, he's also very nice. He can be very down to earth with it, which is, you don't find that much. And he was honest about it. And that's kind of strange. That at first I was like, is he lying to me? And it's like, he wanted me to meet his family pretty quick, and I was like, oh, no, we're not going to do that. I need to get to know him first to make sure he's not crazy, or
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
And yeah, and I'm like, I have my own issues, but still, but after meeting some of his friends, because I think our second or third date, we went to another comedy club, and one of his good friends came with us. And he verified some of the stuff that he was saying. And then when I met his kids, his kids were like the same thing. They were like, well, I'm surprised he told you that he dates a lot of women because he does. It was like my now daughter-in-law was telling me, she was like, I'm tired of telling my son about, grandpa's new girlfriend and whatever. And I was like, well, you know what? At least he's honest about it, but I can tell that there was a lot of love there and even though he is the way he is. And for some reason, I thought that, you know what, with most women, it would have pushed them away. But in my situation, something about it just fascinated me. I'm like, okay, here's a person that is singular and unique in their sexual experience. He was in pro sports for a long time, but I'm not going to say what kind, but it just like so in that nature, he was in sports. He's been around a lot of women. So for me, I looked at him as a source of information. And it turns out that it just worked. And he could tell that there was something just underneath the surface that wanted to get out, but I was kind of holding on to it. So he was giving me the chance to let me come out of it on my own. Does that sound right? Yeah.
Yes, I mean, you get into the adult business, performing,
Mm-hmm.
and again, you've said it multiple times. You in it for the sex, not for the fame or the money. Was it
Mm-hmm.
just like an adrenaline rush? Like, I'm putting this stuff out on the internet for the world to see. Like, is that part of the thrill of it, the part of the fulfillment of it?
The weird part of it is my reasons for doing that were actually twofold. The first reason is because I felt like the type of sex and the type of experiences I want to have are the kind of things that I've always had in my head. And you can't really get that in regular life. You can't really go to like a bar or even to like a lifestyle, a swingers club and stuff like that. For people that are brave enough to do that is like beyond what they wanted to do. Even that kind of still has its limitations. So for me, I wanted to try to experience all the stuff I've had in my head since I was 12 years old. And the way for me to do that, I knew was I was going to have to get into like the industry to do that. And plus, too, I felt like, there's got to be other people out there like me who have that strong sexual drive and who have like that dark freakiness about them that they don't have a way or an option or the opportunity to be able to express it or experience it. So maybe like me, looking at porn is their only outlet. So I'm kind of giving back to what helped me in a way, if that makes weird sense. Does that make sense? That for me,
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
kind
yeah,
of what I was
definitely.
thinking about.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, because clearly, like you said, it's not. If you have these fantasies in your head, you're obviously not going to be able to just fulfill it with just any person on the street. 'Cause you have to find that person that has the same fantasies and mindset and drive that you have, and then clearly being on the internet and getting into the adult business, that you find like-minded people that want to do
Hmm.
the things that you're doing. So I would assume that you and your husband, you have an open relationship.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. And you're fine with
It's a
like
lot of
him.
mutual respect. Hmm.
Okay, so you're fine with him, like if he were to go just randomly hook up with people and.
Yeah, if that's what he wants to do, then yeah. So it's like
Okay.
we have the basis where that it can be hard to do, but you find people in the lifestyle that you have to really have those types of conversations. That if you want this type of sexuality in your relationship, you have to be solid as a couple, like super solid, and you have to have what a lot of people would call uncomfortable conversations about what is it that you want and you need, and you also have to be brave enough to get down to it and talk about the things that disturb you or scare you about doing that kind of stuff. Like can you have sex and not have your heart in it? Because that's what gets a lot of people. What if you have sex with someone and you moan differently? or something, are you going to take that the wrong way? And it's not that at all. You have to have that foundation and that strength. If you don't, that is not the type of relationship that you guys are meant to have. I would not recommend that. So that's something that some couples have problems with, and they learn about it the hard way. But for us, I'm so thankful that we're strong like that, and that's not a problem for us.
So you mentioned about like some of these people that you're friends with and hook up with and become you know I guess sexual partners with that don't want to do things on camera.
Mhm.
Where do you just kind of meet these people at? And like what is the weeding process? Like what is there's got to be like a process that you just can't just meet just any old person.
Right. We don't. And for all of my amateur and professional shoots that I do, whether it's private or pro, I'm tested, and everyone who I'm with has to be tested as well. So, because I don't play that game, I'm not trying to get anything, and I'm not trying to bring anything home to my husband. So the testing process is very expensive, but if a person doesn't have the money to do those kind of tests, then you can use a condom. But the vetting process for me and for us is we've been on certain lifestyle privately certain lifestyle sites, and we get to know people who express interest, or we express interest, and you get to know them a little bit on the site and talk to them some, and that's how we vet out. Every once in a while, it's like you sometimes you don't really know what you're getting sexually until you actually have sex with them, but we try to get to know the person or the persons that we're with as much as we can beforehand, so that helps. But in the industry, it's you kind of through word of mouth, and then people see your content, people seeing the shoots that you've done, the pro work or whatever, and word gets around, and kind of networking, and that's how you get the contacts that you get and some of the bookings that you get, because people hear about you, or you hear about some people and you're interested in shooting with them. So, and you kind of go that way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's kind of trying to wrap my mind around this because, again, this is something that it could be very dangerous. And like you said, you've gone through the processes of how to weed out the danger parts of it. How
Mhm.
often is this something that you do? Like, how often are you, you know, meeting people, and is this something that's what I guess what I'm getting at is like what is the process of as far as like how long does this take? Like is this something like I hit you up today, by the end of the weekend like we're smashing, or is this like
It depends. Honestly, it depends on the person or the people that I'm talking to. If that feeling, if the chemistry is there, and I feel comfortable enough with you, and also people's schedules. A lot of these people, I mean, everybody works, everybody has jobs and stuff like that. So it depends. It's different things, and as security is extremely important for me, and especially my husband. So 9 times out of 10, I am not going to do these smash smash events by myself. Um, my husband is my security most of the time, and nobody fucks with him because he's tall and big. But the thing about that is, I've been very lucky that we've done enough vetting and have enough good instinct enough to see the ones that we've had to kind of turn away from because we got the wrong vibe for them, or if people our peers in the industry have heard about them and they tell me, Phoenix, don't mess with this dude, he's terrible or whatever, and it turns out it's true. So it kind of helps. Um, I used to, early in my 20s, as a way of expressing my sexuality in a safe way, I was an exotic dancer for 3 years. And during that time, I did have a stalker. And that kind of changed me as far as security things, because one day he just showed up at my apartment in the middle of the day, and I had no idea how he found out where I lived, what my car was, and I just opened the door one afternoon. I thought it was my neighbor, and he's standing there in my fucking doorway, and I'm like, okay. So luckily everything turned out okay. I got him, he was really angry, but I got him to go home. But those kind of things kind of wake you up to the realities, like you said, of the danger of being in this type of industry. So I am very, very cautious about that. Like my husband is with me usually all the time. If he's not with me, it's only because I have been in these particular scenarios more than once, and every time it's always been safe. There's security. We trust the person or the people, the shoot that I'm doing, so he doesn't have to worry about that, and neither do I. So yeah, security is huge to us.
So what is it that you want to, I guess, like, do you have any kind of goal in this whole situation? Like, obviously, again, you're enjoying the sex, and maybe that's just fulfilling of its own. But is there anything that you want to accomplish? Is there any goals that you have, or is this kind of like, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing, and I'm content with it?
Well, I'm not going to be doing this until I'm 60. So for me, honestly, like I said, it's a twofold thing. I want to try, if I can, to experience all the things that I've seen in my mind that have turned me on over the years, and I want to try them. And on the flip side of that, I also want to be hopefully an inspiration for other people who may have been like me, who maybe don't have, for whatever reason, the option of expressing themselves, expressing their own sexuality. And if they know that about me, maybe they can enjoy what I put out there, and it kind of makes them feel better too, like it was for me. So that's kind of what my goals are.
And then as far as like doing any type of like mainstream stuff, is that something that you think about, something that you strive for, or you're kind of like, hey, if it happens, it happens. If it don't, I'm content.
It's coming because I've already been contacted twice by two different, like, high-end mainstream production companies, like the top three or four that most people think of. Two of them have already contacted me. So the thing about that is they want to see me do more on camera. And I know a lot of people don't understand the stuff that I've done off camera, but getting it on camera for me has been a little bit tougher, simply because when you're on camera, angles are everything in the industry, and that's usually what makes a really great porn scene, are the angles and everything that you get to see stuff. And for me, sometimes when I'm really into it, I forget about that. I can't remember that I need to turn my face this way so the camera can catch this, or my body this way, so that it is what it is, and that's what makes great porn. And sometimes it's a little frustrating for me personally, because maybe I don't want to turn my face that way. Maybe I want to turn my face this way, because that's how I'm feeling at the moment. But it's something I'm having to train myself to do, which I've had enough professional porn shoots now where I've learned how to do it. But it's like, for the more hardcore stuff, like the threesomes and gangbangs and stuff like that, which I actually did participate in a gangbang last year, and no one knows about it. I have to. I'm going to do it, and I just have to get over that. So I'm going to have some stuff on camera now that people will be able to see that, and the mainstream is coming. It's coming this year. So
now some of
get ready for that.
Yeah, and some of the questions we got from fans, because we put it out there on socials that you'd be coming on,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
obviously, your followers on socials, they were
Mm-hmm.
DMing us and asking us questions, and kind of paraphrase this question, because it kind of has a question that I have in this as well. So a guy wanted to know, guy or girl, I'm not too sure, but wanted to know, what is it that you enjoy doing the most as far as sexually? And then I got a follow-up question to that once you answer that. But like, what do you enjoy doing the most?
Okay, I hope this is the correct answer, because this is the first thing that popped up in my head. Was I love being controlled sexually. Like, I like, with the right person, because sometimes a person could do it and they do it all wrong, and it sucks. But I like like being dominated sexually, like choking me a little bit and talking nasty to me and like fucking me really good. And I love that. That is the fastest way to get me wet. The fastest. I love that. Does
Okay.
that is
Yeah,
that
yeah, no, no.
answering
I
your
mean,
question?
yeah, and I guess the follow-up question I had for that is that
Mhm.
obviously you're talking about doing mainstream and angles and everything. So when
Mhm.
you're in that field and you're doing that stuff, sometimes you have to do some things that you may not like. Not so much that you're against doing it, but just may not
Mhm.
be, into doing that. Like, have you ever had to be put in a position, no pun intended, but if you ever have been put in a position where you had to do something where you're like, it's not my favorite thing to do. Like you said, you mentioned you did gangbang and nobody knows you
Mhm.
did that. But like
Mhm.
gangbangs aren't for everybody. Anal's not for everybody. Like, is there something
Right.
that you were like, I'll do it, but it's just not really like my go-to?
Actually, no, because believe it or not, I've done anal. I've done like swallowing for me. That's the only thing I can think of. If I swallow a man, it's because it's not because they're paying me to do it. I have to actually want to swallow him. That like so that's like a if I'm like in a pro shoot and me and the other guy are really have a really hard sexual chemistry together and they want me to do it, then I will. But if I don't, then I won't. Like for me, I have to actually like personally vibe with you sexually like that in order for me to even and it's got to be some hard chemistry for me to want to swallow you like that. But I have had anal sex before. That's not a problem. Uh I have to I know I have to do that more on camera, but I do actually I have found out I do love anal. It feels really good. Um the gangbang that I did was actually I did it there were two they were filming one off camera and one on. And since it was my first time, I did the off camera one because I didn't know how I was going to respond to it. It was me and two other ladies and it was about 25, 26 guys. And it was, I mean, it was the guys were for the most part, most of the guys were nice, but of course, you have some asswipes in there that don't want to follow the rules and they try to, do their own thing and fuck it up for everybody else. But otherwise than that, it was okay. It was really overwhelming, I think, because it was like people everywhere, and I don't know any of these people. I'm trying to talk to them, and it was hard for me to get any kind of vibe. It was my first time doing it. So maybe the next time, if I have one, it may be a fewer guys because that may have been a little bit too much for my first time. But no, I mean, I'm willing to try a lot of different stuff. So if I've never done it before and it's really extreme, I may have to try it off camera first before I put it on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so just open-minded towards it. Um,
Yeah.
I, now, the one of the things that I was always curious about is like, so obviously you're doing these films, and
Mhm.
you're doing it for the sex, and obviously you want to get off and you want to enjoy it. Have you
Mhm.
ever been put in a position where you're doing something and it's just you're not getting off, but it's part of the scene, it's part of what it's called for? How do you, I mean, for lack of better wording, how do you fake it to kind of make it?
I have I'm not going to explain exactly what happened, but I did have that scenario one time. And the reason it wasn't the guy's fault per se. He was really sweet. He was so great. He was nice. He was great. It was just I had filmed two scenes in one day, two separate scenes in one day, and both of the guys that I was with were very well endowed. So I was tired, and by the time the second one, he was very he was instructed it was going to be very dominant and like pounding. And like I said before, I'm built small. And even though we use, lube or whatever, he pounded me so hard. I was in so much pain. I had to stop the scene and just like, sometimes like during the
Call a
scenes,
timeout.
you take a break, call a timeout. People take a break. People are sweating to death. They go dry off, get water. the girls, we have to get our makeup and our hair redone just so it looks right. I went into the bathroom and I literally got down on my knees, and I don't know if you can do this, but I prayed. I'm like, God, please let me get through this scene without crying because it hurts so bad. And I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I was like, all right. They'd already paid me. I'm like, oh God, oh God. So I'm like, I just got into my head and I fantasized that I was somewhere else. Like I was somewhere nice and calm. I was on vacation. I was having a drink. I was going to go eat some sushi or do something like that. And while I'm being pounded like crazy and that pain was coming, I was taking myself somewhere else mentally. And I kind of focused on that. And I couldn't come with him because I was in so much pain, but I had to just like make the noises. And a lot of women do that in porn. And I'm sure if anybody has watched any amount of porn, they know that women sometimes they have to do that for the camera because of the timing, because of the cut, the stop and cut, whatever like that. You just can't. So you just make the sounds. So that's what I did. I made the sounds. And I was so proud of myself because I thought I was going to die. But yeah, that's pretty much what I had to do. But luckily I haven't had that I've only had a couple times where they were so big that it was painful. But yeah, I'm usually pretty on point. When I'm coming, I'm coming.
So, going into obviously 2026 now, we're in the new year and everything. What are something that you can kind of tease for the fans out there that you have coming up for the new year? Something that they can kind of get excited about?
Oh yeah, I'm actually in the process of scheduling another gangbang, and it's this time, like I said, it's going to be on camera. I'm trying to figure out what we're trying to go over, what location it's going to be in. Like I said, you probably will see me mainstream this year. Um, so that's going to be fun. Also, I've made it a habit of trying to get more stuff done, finding more experiences to have that are willing to have at least a little small short video, like a couple minutes or something at least, if they don't want to do the whole thing, if they would agree to have their faces blurred or something. I wanted to have more content because like of me actually having sex with, mirroring all the sex that I actually do have. Because I've gotten a lot of messages about they know that they've heard that I do more off camera than on, and they're like, we want to see it. We want to see it. Yeah, I actually, one of the things that I did last year was as muscle memory, I went back to a strip club and I worked for about a month, and I wanted to do it for muscle memory just to see if I could still do it because I loved being on stage and expressing myself and not having to worry about guys jumping at me or whatever like that. And I love to dance. I've always been able to dance really well. So I did that, and the guys were so upset because they wanted to see me dance. And I'm like, I can't give you pictures because, phones aren't allowed in the clubs. So I actually found a studio that's like an hour's drive from here that people rent out for teaching pole dancing and stuff like that. And apparently social media influencers rent it out to make videos, whatever. So they're booked really solid, but I'm trying to get in. I'm going to film a video of me dancing, of how I dance on stage, and I can still dance really well, and it's a gorgeous studio. So cross your fingers, I can get in pretty quick, but it's going to be awesome. So that way people can see how I dance. And I'm going to have more videos of me being with women. So that's something else that they want to see. So I'm having that as well.
Now, where can people find you at on socials? Because we love to make sure that everybody's going to the right locations and we're not spamming anybody and catfishing and AI and all that other nonsense. So where can people find the official you at?
I'm on X on it's Phoenix, Phoenix, ANG and then the numbers 9157, and that's on X. You can find me there. And then if you go to that site, it shows I have an OnlyFans link as well, and that shows, I think, more videos and stuff that you can't get on Twitter. And I think I have some videos up on ManyVids, I think, but that's really what I do. I don't do a whole lot. I have shot videos for a Score Group before, so I think if you go to Score Group's site for MILFs, 40-plus MILF, you'll see stuff on there for me. And also, I'm 50. I just turned 52, so they have me under the 50-plus stuff too, because they don't know. They were laughing. They didn't know where to put me because I'm 50. At the time, I was 51, and they said I don't look 51, so they didn't know where to put me. So they have me on both. So you can go there under for Score Group. But usually Twitter, X is where people find me, and OnlyFans.
Well, there you have it. Anything you want the fans to know that we didn't cover, or anything that you want to address? The platform is yours. The stage is yours. Anything you want anybody to know that, like, breaking bombshelling news, or are we pretty much covered it all?
I want two things. One is I do read what people send me, like the DMs and stuff. I do read what they send me. So if you think I'm not seeing it, I am. And I do listen to what they say. And number two, I am really toying with the idea of having sex with a follower, just to pick one and just have like mind-blowing sex with them, whether it's a man or a woman or whatever. So I'm toying with that. So that could be coming up as well. So, yeah.
And our handle is, at MMB Radio, at MixMasterB. If you just feel the need to kind of just randomly choose us, we'll make a movie about it. We'll definitely make a spectacle about it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. That'll be fun.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. And one of the things I also want to kind of note before we let you get out of here, obviously you mentioned on your X that you'd be traveling to Vegas. How often do you get to travel? Like, the fans who are, interested in seeing you and meeting you and, possibly collaborating with you.
I travel a lot because I'm a retired flight attendant, so I travel free for the rest of my life. So that's awesome. So I travel a lot. So I go to Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Miami, New York. I go sometimes, Chicago sometimes, Vegas, Phoenix, and San Diego. So those are my usuals, but I still make stops in other places as well, depending on what shoots I have lined up.
Well, there you have it. We appreciate you taking time to talk to us today, and everybody getting a little bit more informed of who you are and your journey. And we're excited to see this mainstream stuff. I'm sure your DMs will be flooded now with potential people that want to collab with you, and they know the weeding process, they know the screening process now. So
yes.
Gentlemen, ladies, what have you, definitely hit her up, follow her on her socials, and we appreciate you taking the time to call into the show and kind of let us know a little bit about your world. Anytime.
This is Phoenix Angel. I'm an adult XXX entertainer, MILF, and you are listening to Mixmaster B on MMB Radio.